So this is intended as a guide for engineering teams of all sizes, right? Because everybody, everybody knows somebody that started out at some point. We all started out at some point. So I've been an engineer for around 19 years now, product manager for over 6 of that, and I've been a small business owner for almost 2 now. And in that time, like I've been on a lot of teams, right? And I've also gotten to manage teams. I've been team leads, I've been product manager, I've been project manager, right? And I've come to realize that, when we talk about work, it's not really what you do, but who you work with, right? I think a lot of us can kind of relate to that. And in the people that you think of, like, I don't really care for this work. It's really boring, but I love my team. What is it that they do well? Why did I feel that way, right? So I've started thinking very deeply about how I can share this with other people while also helping to support my community. One of my life goals is to make sure that everyone in my community is happy, healthy, and prosperous, right? So with that said, if anybody here is a junior engineer, if you could raise your hand so I can see. Okay, we've got about maybe 25% of people, some people in the back there. Awesome. And who here currently works with the junior dev on their team at work? All right, we've got about over half. Fantastic, cool. So this talk is primarily for people who are senior team members or team managers, whether that's product, project, develop, whatever your title is. But secondarily, for those of you who are my juniors in the audience, this talk might say some things that might make you feel like this is your fault, that you're supposed to be better or do something else. And I want to say upfront, that's not the case. Those of us who've been here and doing this for a while, we have information bias, right? Like we forget what this is like. So my goal is to help the senior and principal level engineers remember the pain of the steps, like where you're at right now, because you have it harder than we do. When I started, CSS wasn't invented yet. Okay, we put styles in line, right? Then CSS came out and I was like, I don't think I trust this. This is weird because I'm a slow adopter. Fast forward to now, we've got all sorts of frameworks. We've got a back end in our front end, right? You have it harder. So I want everyone here who hasn't been where you're at right now in a while to remember that. So when you feel attacked, please take a deep breath, find me afterwards, and I will personally give you a hug. So the thing is, we're very good at making junior engineers, right? We're not very good at growing junior engineers. I worry that in our industry, we might have a little bit of a population collapse. We've got a ton of senior and principal level engineers creating all these systems, making them go, working with each other, but we don't always take the time to train people to learn how to do this. And especially now as we hear people saying, oh, I'm going to replace all our mid-level engineers with AI because I'm definitely not a robot. It doesn't make this problem better, right? We've got all these boot camps, university programs, accelerators, online DIY platforms, teach yourself, that one friend that you know that you meet up with, right? Like all these things that help make us junior devs in the world. So I started thinking about this, right? Like I started getting a little bit obsessed with this topic. When I dive deep, like really deep, right? So I have now interviewed 5 boot camp grads, 2 boot camp students, 1 boot camp instructor, 2 university students, 1 university instructor, 2 recruitment and staffing positions, 2 HR executives, 4 engineering mentors, and 1 government grant funder. And these are all recorded user interviews because I wanted to really try to take this information, this problem, and solve something. So when Dylan said in the very beginning, hey, if you care about mentorship in the community, please do come talk to us. I really want to find a way to make this better for our community at the whole. And Phoenix is just where I live right now, so I'm doing it here. So because it's such a big problem, there's more than just one solution, and that's kind of what this talk is encompassing, is all of that information. So let's imagine that you have a team, right? And it needs to grow. A business says, hey, we've got a lot of money and we need to make more products. We got to go faster, right? Life is good right now, though. Like your code base is great. It's well tested. It's mostly reasonable, right? The team jives and you really like them. Then at this point, What'll happen is either there'll be some recs put out for a senior engineer. It'll take a long time to get somebody and they'll come with their own opinions. You may or may not work well together, but at the end of the day, you might begrudgingly respect them, or maybe you really love them, right? Or they'll put out for a couple of junior engineers, right? And they throw them in, and then within like 6 to 12 months, they're like, why are they not swimming, right? We're not very good at growing this skill set. We just kind of expect people to sink or swim trial by fire, and I think that we can do better. In our industry, it's a lot about soft skills, right? Yeah, learning how to code is one thing, but when I've done hiring, I've always hired for the people that could at least talk through their thought process, even if they didn't really know what TypeScript was yet, right? Because I can always train you. I can teach you the hard stuff, but I can't teach you how to be a good person, how to have teamwork, how to apologize for things, which, speaking of which, I'd like to formally say, I'm so sorry, Jen. I was indeed supposed to go next. That's why she was looking around. Me? And I'm like, yeah, get up here. I was supposed to go after Olu, which makes more sense. His talk just gets started, right? Like, don't wait. Really rolls really well into this. So I'd like to call myself out for that. Right now, with AI tools, I think that AI is making the focus on the need for soft skills even greater, because we can now start to use like generative code to do things a little bit faster, which means that we kind of have a little more time to talk to each other, right? To reason and think about the code base. So thinking about people who are just coming out of school, whatever that might be, people who are new to the industry. These are things, though, that don't get taught well, right? Like everything I've been talking about is team. But in a school, when you need to have a pass or fail grade, that's an individual thing. They're already set up to only be evaluated as individuals, right? So we need to help people understand how to work as a team. I often call software a cognitive sport, right? It's very demanding. And you don't really produce much, right? And it never ends. So if we focus more on helping people to understand that every team is different, even within the same company, you move to a different team, expectations are different, pointing systems are different, right? So we can help them learn that. There's 3 general basic areas within this idea of helping people to think about working as a team member after they've learned the hard bits of here's an if statement, here's a loop, right? So if we go back to our growing team, and we've got our junior dev on our team, if we think about how might we work with them. We can start to talk about the tools that we use together, right? Git, Flow, and Scrum. This is often taught separately, not always together. I've heard from people who are in university programs that they don't even get to learn that much about Scrum. Maybe they learn about Git, but they end up naming their branches after themselves instead of the feature. There's a little bit to learn there, right? Even people who are in boot camps will often be told, okay, cool, this is your capstone project. Everybody get in a group now. Okay, now you're gonna be the product manager, you're gonna be the designer, and you two are gonna be testers, and you'll be the engineers. Go, right? They don't really get a working model. They don't get to see an example of it in process. And when you bring these together, it's very much like, oh, what do I do now, right? Putting things in practice is not that intuitive. We're used to it now because we've just gotten used to it. We have information bias, right? Learning, like, when do I merge my code? Like, how does it go into the code base? Like, how do I get it reviewed and stuff like that? Wait, somebody else needs to test this? I already tested it, right? What do you mean? Like, the QA engineer did, but now there's user acceptance testing? What is that, right? Writing these things out, making it clear for people, for every team is helpful, not just for new people, but also for ourselves. Learning how to ask for input is something that I have also seen and heard from junior engineers, that this is really hard, right? We often say like, okay, 20-minute rule, right? Like, we love to say the 20-minute rule. But this is really hard because, like, when do you know when to start that timer? By the time you realize that you should have started the timer, you probably should have asked for help like 2 or 3 hours ago, probably. And this causes a lot of like emotional distress, right? Because now there's this imposter syndrome that's coming in here, like, oh no, if I tell them that I've been trying to do the same thing for the past 3 days and I haven't asked for help, they'll realize that they shouldn't have hired me, and I'll lose my job, and everyone's gonna think I'm dumb, and I'll never get a job again, and I'm gonna go back to doing what I did before, right? Like, we all still experience imposter syndrome. As people who've been in this industry for a long time, we've just gotten better at managing it. I give mine a name sometimes. Go, Rebecca, sit down, stop it. right? No one's actually thinking that about you. And she goes, but I am. So when we help people to realize that, knowing when to ask for input is a skill, it's something that we hone over time, that it's okay to have accidentally spent too long on something. Like, that is okay. It happens to all of us. It'll come with time, right? Understanding the context is another big one as well. As a senior engineer, when we're doing sprint kickoff, and we've got a bunch of tickets on the board and we're asking ourselves as a team, is this something that we think is reasonable for us to think about for the next 2 weeks, right? You'll get a lot of questions as you go through each one. And as a senior engineer, we've seen a lot of things, right? We'll know to ask like, oh, hey, so for that element there, when we mouse over it, is it supposed to actually grow? Because that might cause a shift in the UI. And do we actually want to do that? And the product manager, who's probably not a technical product manager, will go like, oh, I did not think of that. Thank you so much, right? Let me go talk to the designer, right? As a junior engineer, you might not realize that until you build it and you're like, huh, this thing moves. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Clearly the designer said it right. So like we've got more context to understand the bigger picture. We're not so zoomed in on the nuts and bolts of how things work. And that's a good thing. They should be zoomed in on the nuts and bolts of how things work. That's how we all got to the point where we understand the bigger picture. But oftentimes, this can feel like a personal failing to junior engineers, especially coming from school where they're supposed to be very individual focused. What will happen a lot of times is I'll hear them say things like, oh, well, I just thought I'd just go read the code base, that the answer would be in there, instead of saying, hi, I don't know what's going on. How am I supposed to do this? Where should I go look first, right? Like, what area of the code is it in? Can someone sit with me? Oftentimes, they've been trained for the past 2 to 4 years sometimes to go find the answer in the textbook or the code example themselves, right? We don't really want that in the real world. There's also an assumption that other people know already. And this is one that I've talked to other like mid-level engineers about, like, how can you be more senior? Is be the person that's willing to say like, hi, so what does CFS stand for again, right? And everybody goes, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking that, right? And it turns out it's not what everybody thought, right? When we assume, right, like there's the whole saying about assumptions, but it really is true in the cognitive sport that is software engineering that we do. It's better to be more clear than clever, is something I say often. So make sure there are clear guidelines. And these are our action items for us. For seniors, principals, this is stuff you remember. It's typically going to be on a yellow slide like this, but write things down, make it clear, right? That helps build culture as well, so that way you can foster a great place to work. And then when you hire new people, whether they're junior or senior, they'll know what to do. They can just get right in and start working, hanging out with you, doing however it is that you want to drive. You want to go to the left, they'll go to the left, right? Like, perfect. We should make sure that when we write those things down, that we include daily routines. Mike mentioned that I am apparently a premier software provider here, which I will stand by, but I failed one of my contractors, and I didn't realize that he didn't know that every day he should pull the main branch, get a fresh copy of main, rebase it into his feature branch, see if things still work. If they don't, message the most recent author and say, hey, can you pair with me and help? I was trying to pull this in. I've got a code, like a merge conflict, or all of a sudden my thing is breaking. Can you help me understand why, right? And he had been working with me for like a month and a half at that point. And I really had to sit myself down and go, whoa, I have created such a bad atmosphere for this person. I still feel bad about it. Other things you can include in this too, more than just like, one-on-one stuff or back this way. Where am I? This one. Other things here, other than just daily routine, like, in the morning things, common debugging steps would be a great thing to add into. Writing down templates for pull requests, tickets, postmortems. The more we can reduce our cognitive loads, we know where to expect things. It's going to make it easier for us as seniors and principals as well, but also makes it easy for the new people so they're not constantly trying to find information for hours and then start to work and then feel like, oh no, my whole day is gone. What have I done? This one was also an important one that I found out too from like hands-on running my own business, getting that one-on-one format ahead of time so that way they know what to think about, how to self-evaluate so that way they can grow. Oftentimes in these, and this is a real one, like this is an actual like screenshot that I've taken from one that I've had, but typically junior people are really mean to themselves. Like they're so mean, people. So all we have to do is we go in after they write these things and you say, no, 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 no. Like this is great. Like you're learning things. You're actually better than you think. And they go, really? And you go, uh-huh, yeah. You want to pair on that thing though? And they go, mm-hmm. Also, prescribing team roles. I've worked in places before where you are told, hey, just self-organize, very much like the boot camp example from earlier. And I would posit that that is unkind. It is maybe capital U, unkind. What happens eventually, like it sounds rad on the surface, like, oh yeah, however you want to organize is like dope, man. And you're like, cool, I can do whatever I want. But now we're working together and I'm expecting you to come up with the designs, right? But you're expecting me to come up with a design spec. Neither one of us are designers, right? So we go to management. I'm like, hey, management, who is supposed to do this? And they go, I don't know, figure it out. Now we have a way in which negative culture can self-introduce organically, and those teams suck. It is a good thing to tell people what you need them to do and what they need to be responsible for. It can be hard to tell somebody what to do. Like, it really is. It feels weird, right? But it's kind to do it. So, does anybody recognize this screenshot by chance? Anyone? Okay, I got a few. Okay, cool. Oh man, this is a very old comedy skit. It's called The Expert. And in it, the protagonist is invited to a board full of business people. And he's there because he is the expert, right? He needs to lend his expertise for the upcoming project for the client to sign. And essentially what ends up happening is they go, okay, well, the task has been drawn up, the task is clear, and they're British in this sketch, so it's extra funny because I love British humor. But he is tasked to draw 7 straight lines, all strictly perpendicular. And so he kind of sits there and he's like, I mean, 2 lines as such can be perpendicular, but as soon as you add a third, you see they become parallel. And they'll go, oh, yeah. Okay, well, I just don't understand. You're the expert. You're supposed to do this, right? And they just keep pushing it. It's 10 minutes. Please watch it. It's glorious. But this happens a lot in the real world, right? We get these weird business rules that we cannot work around. Eventually, he's got to write them in invisible ink in the shape of a kitten, right? Like, it's ridiculous. But what this can look like in the real world is that perhaps, instead of using that Postgres database that we wanted to use, because it has all these nice features for the type of data we're working with, we actually need to be using Microsoft Access because we've got a 10-year contract with them, so we're just not willing to pay for data store somewhere else. And so you're like, oh, okay, that's a hard business logic requirement. It can look like other things, whether it's like the color for something, a specific user interface. Like, we've all come across these things, and I think at this point we just kind of roll with the punches, right? So this absurdity is important, though. It's not something that you can make up, right? When you're working for your own projects, working for schools, like, you can't really introduce the weird things that happen in business because business is weird. It's this strange game of telephone, and all of a sudden, like, what was supposed to be like, hey, rainbows are really pretty, turns into, please bake me 3 cakes, 1 chocolate, 1 vanilla, and 1 strawberry, but in the shape of cats. Right? It's it can also look like early choices that we make in the code base. And they go, yes, I have made such a great code base. My models make sense. Everything is good. It's clear. Everything is well-defined. Concerns are separated. Code is coding. Design is here, like, perfect. And then business is like, hey, so actually we wanted, so the client and admin model actually, like, it turns out they can log into the same thing instead of being 2 different websites. And you're like, dang it, we made those separate models. So now you have 2 user models in your code base, and this just goes forward. You don't get time to clean this up and refactor it typically, right? This absurdity is important. People who are new often think, oh man, well, I must not understand this very well, right? But it's not their fault. And reminding them and reassuring them, like, no, this is genuinely weird. Like, don't worry about it, but like, here's how we work with it is important. Some ways that we can do this is to help document major choices, not just code, but also for product. A lot of people love to say, oh, well, the code should be self-documenting. And I think that's a little monstrous in some ways. Like, yeah, you can understand how it works. You know, the code shouldn't tell you, hey, I'm doing this right now, but we should still endeavor to write down at least the major choices of why we switched the website from blue to green, right? Or whatever it might be. But the problem with documentation, though, is that, you know, it's always lagging behind. It's not always going to be quite up to date. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a soft skill set, willing and able to understand what's happening and get the bigger picture. What we think is important right now is different from what we thought was important 2 months ago. And we go, oh man, I wish I wrote that down. This is a hard thing. It takes time to hone and develop this skill, and we should remember that. The other thing too, within this absurdity that we have to work in, like a lot of people here are musicians. We've had lots of talks from people who do music. We'll have more talks from people who also do music. I think I might be the only like presenter who desperately wants to be a musician but can't. I've tried really hard. I could do painting, I could sketch and draw, right? And one of the things that comes up with that is like, if I was to give everybody here a blank canvas and every color of marker imaginable, and I said, cool, draw anything, a lot of you would probably sit there and be like, what do I draw, right? But like, what if I gave you only like 2 or 3 colors and I asked you to draw your emotions right now? You might start to kind of scribble something. We'd be more likely to get something on the paper because these constraints foster creativity. And this is not my opinion. Like, this is the opinion of many other people. Like, I heard this phrase like when I was a kid, but it's also important in our code bases. Our code bases are creative endeavors. We're solving problems the best way we know how using logic, but it's often a creative approach. There's more than 3 ways to solve any one problem that we will solve with one, right? So these constraints can add in creativity that people who are just trying to work on their own projects in school or side projects for like family members don't often get introduced to this. In this process, though, when we make that choice about, you know, which one of the 3 to 5 ways that we might solve a particular problem, we don't often involve junior people in the room. Oftentimes the senior engineers are just overtaxed cognitively, like, no, we don't need to be teaching right now. We just need to think about it. Let's just get together and whiteboard something out, right? But it's important to invite them. They should be there. They should see that process and be able to ask questions. We should slow down and make room to help them see the things that we're thinking about, the things we're questioning. You know, when we have to choose between Rust or Ruby, which is a very common discussion that happens at HeatSync at the co-working place that I run on Wednesdays with several people in here, it's important for them to hear those questions, right? It's important for them to know. So there's also an elephant to this talk, right? Like the big elephant that we've all been kind of dancing around too, that I kind of mentioned earlier, and that's AI and code gen. And how does this impact our junior engineers? I originally wrote this talk and I didn't want to talk about AI because I've done all this work connecting with people, talking with people. What are their experiences? What can we do to help be more inclusive in our industry? But we can't get around this. And like, even though, yes, I used AI for every image here, except for that still, because I'm not a Photoshop wizard. AI and code gen, it doesn't help this problem. It makes it worse in a lot of ways. And I think it causes extra stagnation. So even when we do the right thing with our junior devs, thank you, that AI removes the ability for people to do, right? We learn by doing. We learn by trying something and having it fail. Like if I come up to you and you're like, hi, my name is Jen. And I'm like, cool, awesome. And I go, you know, I'm so bad with names or whatever. If I come up to you again and I say, hey, I'm so sorry I forget your name. And you tell me, oh, my name is Jen. I don't get the opportunity to fail. I go, Jane. And you go, no, Jen, right? Like, right? That helps me now remember. When we just copy and paste things from code gen or whatever and let it go, we don't get the opportunity to like have those little micro mini tests, right? Like I put in this CSS style selector thing and it didn't work. So I right click, inspect, type it in like, oh, right, it's space between, not between space, right? This helps us remember, and we're depriving our junior engineers of this when we allow them too unfettered of an access to AI code gen, right? This is an example that was given to me by a friend. He asked Replets to create an app. The goal, like part of the prompt, was to have a multiplayer game that simulates a crypto trading market, and the AI did it. it successfully generated it, right? It's got database models, front end, back end, API, WebSocket connections, and it's playable. It runs. You can play it, right? You log in and everything. And on the surface, it looks good, right? So this is a tech talk, right? So like here's some code examples. I checked the box. But if you want to scan this QR code, while I talk about this a little bit more, I think this is a really interesting exercise for ourselves because there is a problem. And like I'm going to tell you what the problem is in this talk here. But there's a major problem that's not clear. And he didn't even catch it the first time. And he's quite a senior engineer. He's, I think, better than me in many ways, whether that means anything to you or not. But the way that this was coded by AI, it only used one WebSocket. I heard a wow in the audience. So what this means to the back end is that there's only one player. All of us could log in and play this, right? But only one person would truly be playing it. And even when I went and looked at the code, I had a hard time finding exactly where the error was. And I asked him, do you know where it is? And he went, no, I don't know, right? He went and asked AI. There's 3 different files it goes across, and these are the 3 that I screenshotted. So I think it's interesting from a learning perspective for all of us to like just go in and like really challenge ourselves to like, how good are we at reading code, right? Oh, I had a punchline slide. Sorry. But this self-confidence, right, grows from self-trust. We have to trust ourselves to be able to try. And AI doesn't let us do that. When we grow this allows us to grow our curiosity, to go through the code base as we're working in a particular area and wonder like, hey, I'm using this class here, but like where else? Where is this defined? What else is it used for? Type of things. These things for me have been what have helped me grow and learn and be a better engineer at various teams I've worked at over time. So all of us here, especially senior, principal, team managers, wherever, we have an active hand in helping to grow this confidence for our junior engineers on our teams. And we have the ability to help them. One of the speakers earlier said that there are no failures, only learning. I loved that. I think it was Olu, which is probably why I was supposed to go after him instead of Jen. But it's true. You have to learn through these failures, these little micro tests. So in short, please remember from this talk here that clarity is kind. Share the absurdity that happens and focus more on doing. Because trust is a two-way street. If we can't demonstrate that we are trustworthy, that our junior engineers can trust us to live these values, to share with them, to create a place for them to grow and flourish, how are they ever in turn going to be trustworthy back of people who, wants to think about the code, who wants to lean in, right? Instead of leaning back. So 2 takeaways. 1, please write a very silly, sillily pedantic daily routine list for your new hires. I don't care what level they are, just make it really silly. Check Slack, see if there are messages. Respond to messages, check email, think about responding to email, right? Pull main branch, right? Go into all that, make it sillily pedantic, right? And make sure you involve your juniors in the creative process of problem solving at work. If you want these slides, I'm happy to share them with you. Please get in touch if you're interested in any of these topics as well, mentorship, anything in Phoenix. If you're senior, junior, middle, not even related to tech, I would love to talk. Please get in touch. And thank you so much.